Is your studio business inclusive? Truly, have a think about that. This is an important question to ask, and today we're going to tackle that with my very special guest, who's also a lovely friend of mine who I speak to nearly every day of the week. Her name is Simone Eyles from Disinfluencer. Now, Simone is curating the world's best inclusive stock library at Disinfluencer with authentic images that features and represents people with disability. 1 in 5 are living with a disability. And so it's important that we include them. It just makes sense. It just makes sense. We're going to talk about what that can look like in your life and in your studio business. Now, Simone is also a talent manager. She represents talent and artists in the advertising space, including influencers and working with big brands. And so, these are people with disability or lived experience of disability. So this is a really exciting conversation. Now, Simone also has a child with disability. So she talks about that too and what that looks like and why she decided to create a social enterprise that supports employment for people with disability, but more than just employment, about fulfilling their dreams. Because people with disability want to be seen too. They can be talent and have those aspirations to get on camera and be a part of the action. So let's talk about that on Studio Talent Collective. I'm Josephine Lancuba, and welcome to Studio Talent Collective, the podcast for dance and performing arts studio owners. Here we share industry insights, inspiring stories, and real talk to help you build a thriving studio and in-house talent agency. As a performing arts business coach and talent agent, I'm all about dreaming big and growing together as a community. You're in the right place. Let's leap in. Hello and welcome, the wonderful Simone Eyles. How are you today?
I'm good, thanks, Jo. How are you?
Yeah, good. It's so funny because it's been a really long time since you've been on my show. I feel like you're on my show, right? You were there like 100 years ago.
Yeah, something like that.
Yeah, because, we've been going for a good couple of years. And I've mentioned you a couple of times just in passing on other episodes. So this is Simone from Disinfluencer, my good friend. I mentioned, in other episodes that we started off as in a networking community. You needed some services because you wanted to start a talent management service for people with disability through Disinfluencer. And then after that, we just became buddies, and it's been kumbaya ever since. But tell everyone at home, because it has been such a long time since we've chatted on the show, tell everyone at home what it is that you do. What is Disinfluencer and why does Disinfluencer exist?
Cool. Okay, Disinfluencer. Where do I start? I should have this down pat. I do have it down pat. Disinfluencer is a certified social enterprise, and we help businesses and brands be inclusive. And when you work with us, that allows us to offer paid and meaningful employment to people with disabilities. And how we do that is we have our signature offer. We have a inclusive stock library. And we also, like you said, do talent management, and we manage a few influencers, and we have some education for businesses on how to market their inclusion efforts to their stakeholders, their clients, their customers, and just to be comfortable with talking about disability in the workplace.
Yeah, I love that. Now, it's interesting because you brush over the whole talent management influencer thing, but that's actually become quite a part of your business. I know that the stock library at the moment is that major focus, but right now, people are booking your influencers and your talent for campaigns, for advertising.
Yeah.
Do you feel that there's been a real shift in the media landscape, in the advertising space when it comes to seeing more talent on screen when it comes to disability, or do you think that there's a bit more we can do there?
There's always more we can do, but I will say, even in my short time with Disinfluencer, I have seen a massive shift. And it's kind of weird because just before this call, I literally sent out 4 emails for deals for my influencers. So my influencers are getting heavily booked. And yeah, they are getting great results for our clients and the brands that we're working with.
So tell us why Disinfluencer, because I know you've obviously shared with me and publicly about your Josh, right? Tell us about that and that story there, because I think that's important, because there's going to be so many people that will resonate with that, or listen to that story and understand why it's important, why inclusion's important.
Yeah, sure. So my Josh is now, gosh, he'll be 18 this year. So he's a 17-year-old young man. And he was born with a rare kidney disease, and he was very sick, very, very sick for a long time. He had his kidney transplant when he was just 4 days before his 5th birthday. And his kidney came from his dad, my husband. So it was a live donor transplant. So we spent all that time him being sick, and then he got better. I'm air quoting. A kidney transplant isn't a cure, it's just a form of treatment. And then he was diagnosed as autistic and intellectually disabled. When I had Josh, we were living our best life in Alice Springs. I was working as a marketing person for the Alice Springs Town Council, and we were living our best life, and obviously everything got turned upside down. So I have a background in, I'm a trade qualified, I've got a university degree in graphic design. So I understand and love marketing. And then with Josh, when he was little, I started a business because I was never, ever going back to work. And then I did all that. And then I had my daughter, and I had a bit of a break. And there was like a whisper to my soul about doing something in the disability space. But I didn't know what. I wanted it to be something like really creative, like you can tell by my branding. When you see disability, it's usually like drab and blah. So I wanted to do something that was empowering and impactful. And then I discovered social enterprise, social entrepreneurship, which is all about impact. And I didn't want to be a charity or an NDIS provider. So I went down like the social enterprise rabbit hole, and that really resonated with me. And I thought I could do something commercial, i.e. serve businesses and brands in marketing and advertising. And then from that, our impact can be employment for people with disabilities. Inspired by my Josh, he's very tech savvy. He creates content on TikTok. He's taught himself how to use Canva and CapCut. So, and I know a lot of people, I know a lot of other families whose kids have disabilities. So it just kind of made sense to do something. And without, disability is always represented from a lens of advocacy and neglect. Not always, I shouldn't say that. And there's a space for that, but we don't see any light to that shade. So Disinfluencer is here to have influence on marketing of the disability space, people with disabilities, in an empowering and impactful way. That was a very long answer, sorry.
I love that. No, and I think that's an important answer. Now, you talk about how you were never going back to work.
Yes.
That's a big one, because never going back to work is a huge statement. And I think that is because, from our conversations, you spent so many years in the hospital with Josh. I mean, how many years was that? It was a long time.
About 6 years. So yeah, when he had 6 months of life-saving treatment. So when he was diagnosed, he was airlifted to Adelaide. I lived in Alice Springs, so my husband stayed in Alice Springs. And then because of his disease and the treatment, we went to Brisbane purely because my husband could transfer his job. Obviously, our world got turned upside down and we needed money like everyone else does. So we went to Brisbane, but it was good and bad. Like, obviously the treatment in Brisbane was great, but we had no network in Brisbane. So it was like hard in that aspect. Josh's disease, he leaked protein, which would sit in his body as fluid, which would then need to be flushed out with an albumin infusion. I'm getting a bit medical here, but I think it's in context. So every day he had to go to the hospital, had a port in his chest, and he'd have an albumin infusion for about 4 hours, and that would make all the fluid come out of his body. And then I'd just do that again. And eventually what happens with his particular disease is he had one kidney removed when he was 6 months old. So the kidneys fail and the fluid stops leaking, which is great, but obviously your kidney not working is not great. So it's inevitable with his disease. By the age of 6, the kids usually need a transplant or dialysis. And for Josh, he got very unwell. He got pneumonia and it pushed him into end stage before his transplant. So he had 7 months of hemodialysis at Westmead Children's, which he was airlifted there very sick, and we never went home until he had his transplant. So yeah, that was life.
Long journey, right? And you talk about lived experience a lot on your social media content, and this is your lived experience.
Yeah.
I think that's important to share because as a mum, I've got 2 kids that don't have a disability. And so I can't really understand what that would feel like 6 years beside a hospital bed. Like you speak so openly about it now, but at the time, I imagine you couldn't speak the way you do now in reflection as a mum.
Yeah, I think the way I explain it to people is sometimes I hear myself telling this story and I'm like, is it really real? And I'll say to my husband, like now Josh as well, like touch wood, he's 12 years post-transplant, like everything's good. I'm like, is it harder now than then? And my husband will be like, no, it was harder then. But I guess with disability, and even though that's a lot of medical stuff happened there, and we still are heavily impacted medically. I say to people how everyone lived in COVID is how we've lived since he was diagnosed. And even now, like you can see the impact of a virus on someone. So someone immunosuppressed, obviously, Josh is immunosuppressed. So any sickness, usually has him in hospital getting treatment. We can't upset that kidney. We do not have any spare kidneys. So we're always doing stuff to look after the kidneys. So, but it's just my normal, like it's all I know. And I know it's not normal. And I remember my life and my childhood, and I know other people and their lives and their kids, and they're not doing the things that we do. So it's normal. I know it's not normal, but it's our normal. It's just how it is. And we just do our thing and, I don't know.
Yeah. And you get on with it. But you don't just get on with it. You do something about it. Right. And that social impact and providing those opportunities for people like Josh or people with other disabilities. And that's the thing. Disability is so different. Right. And so studio owners, around the world are looking at more inclusive ways of having people with disability in the classroom, in the studio, in the performing arts. And you said something to me the other day, which I thought was really interesting because Josh went and did a theatre performance through his school.
Yeah.
And, you were like, you've never seen him do anything like that before. Like there's never been an opportunity like that before for him. And he's 18, nearly 18.
Yeah.
18.
Yeah. Yeah.
So that's quite shocking to think this is your first time being invited to a program where he has something amazing like that to do. Talk about that. So programming is an important part of, what our listeners are a part of. And what's your experience in just that, the disability programming space over the years? I think it's also dependent on where you live and whatnot, but tell us about what your experience has been.
Yeah, so obviously, like I said, I don't want to cry, but Josh doesn't really get included in anything, and that really sucks. And I think our experience just last week showed how unfortunate that is, because it was an incredible experience, not just for us and Josh and our family, but for him to be with his peers. And that's kind of the whole point of what I'm doing is it's no big deal. People with disabilities, they are people, and they have hopes and dreams, and they like stuff like everyone else, and they like being with their peers. It's just being able to be comfortable with knowing what supports those people need. And you just simply need to ask people what they need. So this was obviously supported with Josh and his school. And there's so many things I can talk about this performance. Like, it was such an incredible experience. But the key thing was, it was a whole bunch of schools performing, and they did 2 little acts or shows each. So in Josh's in a support unit. They've actually started calling it an inclusive unit. He's always been in what I'd call support school, supported education. So it was him and another kid from his class, and their first act was their own show. And the other kid was like the star, the lead, the hero, whatever you want to call it, of the show. And I loved that. It wasn't like they were tacked in the end or on the side with everyone else.
He has Down syndrome, is that correct?
Yeah. And you know, it was such a beautiful show, and Josh was in that. And then in the second act, Josh was with his mainstream drama class, and he was part of the act. Just, I don't know, like.
So there's the key there. So they've integrated what you're saying is mainstream. So essentially, people without disability. Is that what we're saying?
Yes.
Yeah. So they've integrated people without disability into a production with people with disability, and it works, right?
Yes. And also another thing that I wasn't aware until I was there on the night. In the first act, it was just Josh and the other kid. But within their act, they had, I don't know what you call it, Joe. They had people doing stuff in the show, extras, whatever.
Like those ensemble cast, like people coming in and doing little bits and pieces, but like the main part.
Yes, like they had people like making an ocean. So they had like,
yeah, sure.
I don't know how to explain
so like movement montages, creating different scenery and using props.
Using props, yes. But those kids doing that in Josh's show were not from his school. So we've got all these different schools and all these different kids working with the kids with disability, and it's no big deal. And that's the whole point of why inclusion matters, because I'm telling you, it's our normal, it's no big deal. And because people with disabilities are always so segregated, when people are with people with disabilities, it's like they don't have that integration. That might be a good word. And then when people spend time with people with disabilities, like I could see Josh was interacting with the other kids, and the other kids, you know, were including him and were talking to him, and they were taking selfies with him, and he was backstage and he wanted to be backstage, and it wasn't just with, you know, and it was no big deal. It was just like whatevs, you know?
Yeah, exactly. So tell me, okay, so the show integrated, and I think so it doesn't matter if this was a school production or a studio production. I think the principles remain the same. Would you agree with that?
Yeah.
So they come together, they put this production together, people with disability, without disability, it really doesn't matter. They've made it all work. From the programming perspective though, and this is what I'm interested in knowing. So they've come to the stage and they've worked together. In the actual space where they learn the material, was there an integration there, or were they working separately?
They've always been working together. And I think, just to kind of take a step back, I probably should have mentioned this. This has been something they've worked on all year. So not only have they been rehearsing and integrating, whatever you want to call it, they've gone on field trips. So they've gone and watched a theatre production in Brisbane at QPAC. They've gone to see other theatre venues around our region, and they've done, research and field trips, excursions leading up to their performance, in seeing other performances, seeing other venues. Like, it wasn't, it's not just about the show and the rehearsal. Like, it's been a whole thing to lead up to their show that they have done together.
When it comes to representing your students professionally for opportunities in film, television, theatre and commercial, what are you waiting for, studio owners? It's time to jump on in and join us at Studio Talent Collective, the only and the best plug and play talent agency solution for your studio business. Want to learn more? head to our link in the show notes or visit studiotalentcollective.com.
Which is critical because this is where the bonds happen. This is why they're taking selfies backstage together, hanging out with the crew. It's not just because, oh, here is the people with disability coming in, let's insert them. Yay. It's not that. It's they're a part of the show. They're a part of the gang. It's no big deal, like you just said.
Yeah, that's it.
I think people are so scared to even use the word disability.
Yeah.
And that in itself is a problem. And I've learned a lot being your friend for a couple of years. Like, I think, removing the stigma around using that word. And this actually brings me to something that I saw in a Facebook group the other day. And I just kind of want to, I'm not going to mention names or the group or anything like that. But someone did ask this question, and I thought it was really interesting. And this is at a dance industry group. They're asking, how do we feel about special needs categories at competitions? So, for example, people with disability might be in particular categories called inspirational or whatever. And some people are saying, that category made one of the participants feel like a little bit less than, like, why do we have to inspire people? Like, why is this category called that? And then there was all sorts of different comments. Someone with disability actually commented and said that they hate those category titles and that they think that it would, like, shining stars and all that sort of stuff. And they reckon that it actually attributes to people feeling ashamed about disability rather than the opposite, which is its intention. And that they should just call a spade and say, accessible group, adaptive group, disabled category, like whatever. But what's your take on that?
Yeah, I think what happens when we think of disabilities and people with disabilities is people put them in a silo where people with disabilities, they belong to families, they've got siblings, they belong to communities, school groups, whatever. So we've got to stop looking at the person as that singular person, and when we can do that and see them for the person that they are, and we can say they have a disability, and I'm going to say what support they need, or how would, if Josh was a part of a dance group or a performing group, I wouldn't want it to be the inspirational or shining star, because he's just a person like everyone else and he just has different needs, and that's basically it. And he's not an inspiration. He's a teenage dirtbag like every other teenager. And again, I think it does attribute to the stigma, and it's like we don't want to have a special, I'm air quoting special, or, that's the whole point. That's not integration, that's separation. That's like, you're over there, you're different, where we want to be integrated with our peers, with our community, with our creative groups.
Yeah, that's really important. And I think, it's something that we can all think about from a business perspective as well, because I know you know this stat. How many people, let's talk Australia, how many people in Australia have a disability?
1 in 5, 20% of the population.
20%. So, okay, we talk about inclusion and the good feelings and all the bits, but from a savvy business owner, it makes sense to offer people with disability services, because 1 in 5.
Yeah, and that's part of my work, especially working with brands, is it's the most untapped market. Like, people with disabilities have money to spend. And like, as we are friends, Josh doesn't go to sport. He doesn't do anything. He's very interested in drama now, and I'm now looking for a theatre group for him to join. So, it boggles my mind that it's not a thing. And back to what you said earlier, I feel like disability is the final frontier, and people are scared to do stuff because they haven't had that integration. They haven't hung out with anyone with people with disabilities or their families, so they're scared, so they do nothing. Where from the disability community and from, I don't have a disability, I speak as a mum, and from my lived experiences, like, yes, there's so many things you need to do, but the first thing you need to do is just ask what support people need. And yes, there is a lot of things you might need to do to accommodate, but as Josh's mum, I can make that happen for you. If you like whatever support he needs, I'm already doing it. It's no extra. So I think people, they don't know what to do, so they do nothing, where the disability community is like busting to be included. So just do something to include us and we'll be there.
Yes. I'm going to give everyone listening one thing that is so simple. And before I met you, this wasn't on my sign-up form. And now it is for my talent agency. And it's a really simple question. Do you or your child have a disability or special need? If so, feel free to write it here. And then and they don't have to disclose it. It's an optional question. It's not a mandatory question. It's an optional question. They can choose to ignore it, but if they want to flag it, they flag it. And most people do that have a disability or a child with disability. They say what the thing is, and then underneath, if yes, let us know how we can support you.
Yeah, that's all you
and
need
that's
to
it.
do.
And it's like, okay, great, cool, easy.
Yeah, it is as simple as that. Absolutely.
Yes, so that's all. And guys, that can be on your enrollment forms.
Yeah.
And if you don't have that question, because we ask about allergies.
Yep.
We ask about allergies. We ask about permission waivers for media. So, for example, when people take photos and videos in classrooms, if they can share it on social media on their website, we ask that question. Right? But we don't ask, do you have a disability or special need? And be specific and use those words, not just medical conditions. Do you agree with that?
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
Get specific, because that's a different question. Because when someone has a disability or a special need, you can then go, okay, cool. So how can we support you with that?
Yes, and that's really important, because when I've got money to spend, so when I'm looking for these theatre groups now, I'm looking for something that is inclusive, something that if they have that question, I feel seen. I don't feel like I have to go and explain myself and tell like my story or whatever. I'm just like, cool, they get it. They're my people. That's where I'm going to spend my money. And that's the crucial bit that I don't think people understand, is you don't have to do anything, but just knowing it's a safe place to be and to be understood. Like you said, for Josh, for example, Josh isn't nonverbal, but he doesn't talk much, but he will understand everything you say. So I usually say that to people. I'm like, he doesn't talk much, but he understands everything you're saying to him. So don't expect to have a big D&M with him, but be fun with him and just talk to him like everyone else. And he'll follow instructions or do whatever he needs to do. And that's usually it from us,
Yeah, and look, and obviously there is a different teaching technique when it comes to having people with disability in a classroom, but I think it's our responsibility as teachers to do some work on that. Like, there are so many programs, online workshops, things that you can do to make sure that you have an understanding. You don't have to be an expert in the space by any means, but have an understanding. And if they need a support worker in the room, and that's what they say they need, they'll manage that. You don't have to, there are things that subsidize that as well. So they know, that's the thing. The parent will know what to do. The parent knows, okay, we have potentially, and I know, in DIS, but there are the covers for that as well. But also it could be that they have a friend or a family member that's willing to step into the classroom, whatever it is, So the parent will tell you exactly what they want and need. So trusting in that. Now, I hope you don't mind I bring this up, but this really blew my mind when you told me. And this was, you've since moved from that town, and I won't mention the town. But in the town that you moved from, they had work experience at his school. This is high school, right? School. At Josh's school, rather. And they sent him to Mitre 10.
It wasn't work experience. That was his excursion.
Oh my God, that's even worse.
Right.
So this is what I mean, right? And there was no,
and that shop was literally across the road from the school. I'm just going to put that out there. It's a bit of a bugbear.
It's across the road from the school, Mitre 10, and that's the excursion.
Mm.
And that's the level of effort that people believe that they have to put in to giving people with disability experience. It's ridiculous.
Yeah,
Like,
and that
this society can do better than that.
and that's the problem, right? So that wasn't just last year, that was over a course of 3 years. That was the only excursion. And that's what I mean about inclusion and representation. When our kids with disabilities are not included and integrated into mainstream and given opportunities with their peers in the community, we have places that don't understand disability. I knew from Josh's performance last week that those kids, if they saw Josh out in the community, they'd say hello to him. I know now that they would like, it's like not even kids these days are a lot better. It's not even a big deal. They're just like whatever. So they know Josh, they know that he might not talk to them, but they will still say hello to him. There's no separation there. And that's the key with integration and having that empathy. I always kind of talk about the siblings of kids with disabilities, like my daughter, and I've always tried to find support workers that are a sibling, because my daughter definitely doesn't treat Josh different. She's just his annoying little sister, but he's also her big brother. And I know when she grows up, I know she's got a kid in her classroom that has support, and she's like his buddy, and she'll like hang out with him and do stuff because she just gets it, and it's no big deal. And that's kind of my point, right? Like, it's my normal. And yeah, when kids with disabilities don't get opportunities to do stuff with their peers, it's not only do they miss out, but their peers miss out as well with
people. And just for anyone listening that doesn't know what Mitre 10 is, because, we've got some international listeners, it's a hardware store. So imagine going on an excursion 3 years straight to a hardware store. That is mind-boggling. But that's the real lived experience, right? And we need to know it. Now, when you stepped into the theatre community, you said that everyone was so accepting.
Yeah. Yeah, even the lady that I knew a few of the teachers from his school, but the lady running it, because it's called the T5. So all these, like, it's our region, all the different schools. So even the lady running it, she was like, she didn't treat Josh different. Like, he turned up and she like, right, Josh, backstage, go get your theatre blacks on, like, so it was a really great experience. And I was a bit nervous. Like, I get a bit nervous because, like you said, I don't do anything with him. Like, he's never invited anywhere. So to go, and I just think, like, the theatre, we had a bit of a chat about this. I was saying, you could see in the shows, the leads in all the other acts, like, you could see they all have aspirations to be stars. There was a kid who was playing the piano for the performances, and he was incredible. There was like a gymnast in there. So you can see these people in theatre, and we spoke a bit about how they're accepting because, maybe the theatre kids are a bit of outcast amongst their kids as well. So they get it. So it was a really beautiful experience. And I think, again, that should be translated across all of Josh's experience, like all the other kids have in school, but because there's no opportunities for him and for the kids, like it's very minimal and doesn't happen.
Yeah, totally. Now, I just want to mention something, and I'm not sure if you still sell this as a product or not, but I'll just mention it because this might be something people are interested in one way or another. And that is the accessibility plugin for the website. Can you, because I didn't even know that was a thing, tell people what that is.
So I've actually got in a bit of trouble over the last week about my plugin, but I'm going to keep it. So I have a plugin on my website. You'll see my little, where is he? My little blue man there on my website. It's called an accessibility widget. And I use it because people with disabilities, like, we need to make our digital spaces inclusive. So I do help businesses with that. But the main reason I have the accessibility widget is when I work with businesses or brands, I usually speak to their teams. And just like myself, there's people in workplaces who might be a carer or know and love someone with a disability. However, the key with the widget is the dyslexia font. So I usually show that to people. There's such a thing called a dyslexic font. It makes font different so people with dyslexics can read better. And then, a lot of people do suffer from dyslexia. And also from that, parents and people have gone down rabbit holes and come back to me because you can actually get a plug-in like for your computer. So kids with their schoolwork can get this plug-in that changes the font, so it helps them if they're dyslexic with their schoolwork and their reading. So I think the key takeaway there is I'm about talking about inclusion for business, but also inclusion helps everyone. It doesn't just help the people with the disabilities. Like even though I'm talking about dyslexia, like when we be more inclusive, it opens more doors for more people. And I guess when we talk about business, especially in this tough economic climate, there's so many things you can do to reach like more people. And like I said, I'm a mum, I've got money to spend. So I'm spending my money where, just like I'm sure everyone else is, where their values lie. And that's 20% of the market is a big market to be ignoring.
Huge. And guys, if you don't know what we're talking about, that accessibility widget, you can check it out on my website and on Simone's, so disinfluencer.com. Or is that? No.
.co.
Disinfluencer.co. I'll pop a link in the show notes, or josephinelancuba.com. So you can have a play with it. It's a little blue man. It looks like an emoji symbol. It's a little blue man in the top corner of your page, and you click it, have a play with it. It can enlarge text. It can change colors and fonts. It does all this really cool stuff depending on what your disability is or your, what you need. It could even just be that, you could be an elderly person who needs to enlarge the writing on the page and you can't see properly. Your grandma tried to book a trial, but you can't read the website. There's so many uses for it. And I'm sure if people want to get access to that, they can just send you guys a message and ask you how. Would that be cool, Simone?
Yeah, it's in our digital inclusion course, which is on our website.
Yeah, amazing. We'll make sure we pop a link in the show notes for that. Super accessible, affordable. Everyone should have that on their website, guys. Everybody should be changing their enrollment forms today. If you don't have that inside, asking the question how you can help someone, how you can support them, then that should be something you can do today. Those are two things you can do today, and they're simple, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Like I said, it's, doing something is better than nothing. And if you do those two things, happy days.
And of course, some people will say, oh, I really want to start a program with people with disability in my studio. And we want that. But, what can you do today? Because I think sometimes when we make it really big in our minds and it feels scary, sometimes you need to take small little steps, right? Little steps. And it's not scary, guys. It's not scary, but I understand, for some, this is an unknown space. And you can understand that, I'm sure, Simone. You've probably come up against this a lot, people being unsure, right?
Yeah, I think I was speaking to someone at your event last year about this, and they were interested in doing something for people with disabilities. And I just simply said to her, put it out on your socials, hey, is there any interest in this? Is there anyone in our community with disabilities that would like to do a performance, a dance show? Ask the people what they want, and you'll be surprised what people will come back with. Don't sit there guessing. Put it out there to your community. I'm sure if I saw something in my local community asking for, we're going to do a dance or we're going to have a theatre group for people with disabilities, I would be all over that. I would be supporting that, and I'd be sharing it with the people I know in my network that are here to support it too, because we're craving it desperately.
Yes, absolutely. There's an untapped opportunity here. Obviously, we talk about impact, about providing opportunities, but again, it's a good business decision, guys. 20% of the population in Australia has a disability. So if you're not servicing them, you're missing out on 20% of the population. So that's crazy, right? Thank you so much, Simone, for being on the show. If there's anything that you could leave everyone with, a final thought, what would it be?
Oh, you put me on the spot. I didn't think of anything. I think, people with disabilities are people just like everyone else. Smile and say hello. If kids are curious, ask questions. Don't be afraid to, include people with disabilities. Because because they're awesome. That's and so are their parents and carers and support workers and everyone else.
Yeah, I love that. All right, guys. Again, if you want to contact Simone, you can. Those links are in the show notes. Thanks for being on the show.
Thanks for having me, Jo.
This episode is brought to you by Studio Talent Collective, helping you go from studio owner to talent manager with confidence. Ready to start your own in-house talent agency? Connect with me at josephinelancuba.com or via the links in the show notes. If you enjoyed this episode, please share, rate, and review. Thanks for listening and keep shining.